Welcome everybody to this non-dual astrology transmission for May 2023. Really nice to be back. And just to let you know that I'm really getting the channel up and running. I'm looking forward to sharing a lot with you in the coming time. So it's not just about non-dual astrology, but how it may fit into a bigger concept of stepping into a higher consciousness and a higher timeline. So do subscribe. Please do follow the work, because we're going to be having loads of interviews with amazing people. And I'm really, really grateful to have this opportunity to share a lot of the insights I've received from many, many years of travel with many different tribes and many different knowledge systems. So without further ado, let's kick off now. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be looking at today. So a very brief synopsis of what non-dual astrology is. I will put a link in the text box, which also has a synopsis from the last transmission we did. And we also have longer transmissions that are available on request to go deeper. I'm going to be deepening upon those in the coming months so that you can really land with why I feel this is important and why many adepts in the past worked in this way and how we can actually utilize it to upgrade in a massive way. I'm going to be talking a little bit about where we're at, eclipse season, Mercury retrograde. So I'm going to be looking at some of the things that show up in both Western and Vedic astrology. Then going to look at the dream spells, the dream spell calendar, and the wave spells. So the 13-day cycles that we're in over the month of May and their energies. We're then going to look at the traditional Mayan calendar and their 13-day cycles, which are called trisenas, and just see what's coming through for the collective. I'm then going to look a little bit at the Vedic astrology for the month of May, and then I'm going to give a little synthesis, weaving everything together. What I do want to say is that you all have unique karma and a unique astrological blueprint. This is a basic template with which we look at major influences. So there will be nuances to that are idiosyncratic for each of you. So please know that this is generalized to a degree, but I do like looking at trends, and I'm very into pattern thinking, which is something that indigenous knowledge systems do. So hopefully you'll get something from this. And if you would like me to go deeper, I'm available over the month of May and also July to give readings. And I really love giving these to help people really step into their Dharma path and to come into a higher soul frequency. So what is non-dual astrology? Again, I'm going to be brief today because I don't want to take up too much time for those of you who've heard me say this before. So the way I'm working at this present moment, I'm triangulating Vedic, Mayan, and Dreamspell astrology. And each of these systems has nuances that make it very unique and also really relate to a possible section of our life and our way of being that is not comprehensive fully, okay? So when we the three together, just like when we do research, if we triangulate, we come to more stable findings. So I'm really loving this dance between these three systems. And in short, I work a lot with the Dreamspell calendar, especially when I'm giving readings, to help people understand their more transpersonal spiritual role in a kind of new age society way. And that's obviously really important because a lot of us didn't maybe grow up in places like Guatemala, where the traditional Mayan calendar is sustained. And so our relation to the heavens when we are born and the culture that we are karmically brought up in, because everything is for a reason, this changes. And so I'm really looking at the subjectivity of astrology because of where we are in relation to the heavens. And I feel that Vedic astrology, Jyotish, really looks a lot at a lot of soul information, and it's a really good marker for karma. Now, we also can find karma in the other charts, and I have been teaching this to some of my more experienced students recently, and I'm maybe going to do a little discussion on that. If I get enough requests, I'll organize a little class on how you can find karma in your own chart in different systems. So, the thing that we're doing here, talking about non-dual astrology, firstly, what I want to say is that we're in a really dualistic time. And people love to have a bit of conflict. And this is part of our wiring and part of our collective karma. And I think that we are all feeling that we're in a collective awakening. And part of our collective awakening is to not always be predicated onto the wiring that is dualistic. It serves a purpose, but it is not the only way of looking at things. And we see people who fight other people because of what football team they like, people who have decided there's only one truth. And we see a lot of that at the moment in the media and in people's reactions to COVID. And this actually pins us into being a more materialist being, because we're not actually coming into the heart and the oneness and weaving in the mythic realm with a higher truth that is actually more honoring the divinity of all of us as a refraction of divinity, and with our individualism intact, playing out a field of oneness. Okay, so I think that deploying non-dual astrology at this time is a really important statement to make. And I've also seen a lot of dualism between different astrologers from different lineages, which actually was quite shocking to me. And therefore, I'm launching this channel to start off in a non-dualistic way. I am not putting one thing as more important. I want us to open up and get rid of this predilection to playing out our wounds and our separation. Okay, and this is not coming out of a vacuum. I work with the Kalachakra Tantra, and I'm very grateful to have my root lama and teacher, Khentrul Rinpoche, who is a master of that system, and he's a non-biased master. The Kalachakra system also fuses Tibetan, Chinese, and Vedic astrology. So it's also non-dual when working with three main astrologies. And it holds blueprints for our higher awakening. And I will be sharing more about that as we deepen on the channel. So when we look at different astrological systems, we often have placements in a chart that will say something about a person's body. We also see certain ways we overcome karma. And we also see we're always in this dialogue between time and space, between ourselves as a microcosm of the whole. And if we look at Hermetic wisdom, this concept of as above, so below, we're always mirroring what's going on in the heavens. And when we start to understand that sacred connection and that there's a pattern in things, we actually start to maintain more control in our life to overcome adversity and to be more robust in our approach to the challenge. Okay, and really it's like we're in this cosmic computer game, and if you utilize astrology in the right way, you overcome a lot of suffering, and a lot of suffering comes from separation. But also we start to create the right conditions to not have to come back to the suffering samsara realm, because we're actually starting to come into the oneness by overcoming the afflictions, the habits, and the karma that has been an identifier for us. So yeah, this is why I'm really working on this channel, because I really want people to see that when we join in with this, we actually can grow very, very quickly. So I hope that really helps to set the scene for you. Now, some of you may have seen my transmission for mid-April. There's quite a lot of crossover. So it was great because it was labor saving for me, and I'm traveling soon. We already just came out of an eclipse, and we're now going into the lunar eclipse on May the 5th into the 6th, depending on where you're located on the planet. So we're still in a process of endings in a big way. And in many ways, when we look at Vedic astrology, this is all sitting in Aries, which is the real spark at the beginning of the zodiac, and is also ruled by Mars. So there's quite a dynamic, forceful energy to the wake up that we will have. So I know a lot of people are in reef shuffles with their friends groups and things like that. A lot of people have spoken to me in the last few days and said, wow, I have been through a massive death process recently. And what I would say is these people are all already on a path of awakening. And so what I often see is the people who are already on a path of awakening have a degree of space holding they have to do in their community. And often they'll feel the effects of something earlier than others. So yes, a lot of people are experiencing a real death process, and that's great. With death comes life. And we just came out of the World Bridger wave spell, and we've just come into storm in the Dreamspell calendar. So it was after the death, now comes this activation and self-generation energy. So that's pretty potent. Now we also have we've got what I've been calling this divine spark energy that's coming in. It's lighting up quite a lot in May. So after the initial jolt of energy, we're coming into the second part of the eclipse season on the 5th and 6th. But then also, as we're in that, Venus and Mars are going to be conjunct in Gemini in Vedic astrology. So between the 2nd and 7th of May. And Venus and Mars are like a dynamic pair, and it's very seen as Venus is more sensual and Mars is more abrasive, and Venus is more watery and Mars is more fiery. And so it's that kind of union that also sometimes has conflict within it. But what that can do is bring a lot of passion and drive around things. And what we have seen is that there's a lot around communications that's up at the moment. I talked a lot about this in the mid-April transmission. With Venus and Mars sitting in Gemini, that's pretty potent, because Gemini is about how we work with communication and information, and yeah, it can be quite about facts, and it can be about our. It's quite airy, so it's also, it can be a real activation of the speech and the information we're sharing. So there's something of an activation of that, but we've got Mercury in retrograde as well, and Mercury's in retrograde in Aries, and Mercury is it's Parivartana with Mars in Gemini. So, but that's only until the 7th of May. So we've had this crossing of Mercury and Mars in each other's signs, which gives a lot of strength to both of those. But they have an uncomfortable meeting generally as energies, because they're very different. Okay, so Mercury is more fluid, more earthy in a way, and Mars is more fiery. So when you meet them, sometimes it can mean that sometimes people come out venting a lot, or their speech comes out in an inappropriate way, things like this. And we can see a lot of hot-headedness on the internet at the moment, and a lot of duality. So with Mercury retrograde, of course, we're going back to the drawing board on something, and Mercury is going to be retrograde until the 14th of May. So we could have some quite dynamic speech, dynamic new information coming through. And this is also going to be seen, we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but this is also going to be very strong on the 1st and 2nd of May, because we're going to have a combust Mercury. So the sun's energy is really, really strong on Mercury. So I would really say it's really, just like what I said last time, but more, there's quite a few dynamic energies coming through here. And I really would encourage you to do meditation before you make a post, to sleep on things before you do them. And I really find that sometimes when we get hot-headed about something, we're quite ignited about something, we start to post something, but you can feel like an energy that's meaning that you're not in your full higher truth, but you want to get it out anyway. And I feel that there could be a bit of that. So it can be a time where people can bring forth wisdom. But I really would say that the thing is, write a post, save it, and don't post it until the next day, and go back with fresh eyes, okay? And meditate before you do things, so that you can really be aware that we have a lot around communication, because we could see a lot of escalation of fisticuffs around the world in different sections. And the best thing we can do if we want to be the change is to dedicate to the collective that we want to be different, and we're going to be mindful in our speech. Sometimes we have to propel speech to bring something into being. And with Mercury retrograding, it's really looking at some of the systems that we're working with, and some of the information systems we're working with, and how we want to do things. It's looking at our relationship to healthcare, to all sorts of things. But it's a really good time to shuffle up how you're doing your work with information as well, okay? And utilizing the Aries energy, you're going to get a divine spark to do things, but you don't, it's always said it's not a good idea to make new contracts, to launch new projects, things like that over Mercury retrograde. And this is similar to eclipse season. You're in like a cleaning process, and you're cleaning something in order to activate something new. So it's better to let that take place, because otherwise you jump the gun. And we've got a lot of this energy of jumping the gun and doing silly stuff because of the Jupiter Rahu conjunction, which we're going to talk about as well. So I would really, really say just understand how information is coming to you, work with it, work behind the scenes. And then when Mercury is going to go direct on the 15th of May, you probably got something really tangible, but don't actually sit in the limitation of the gaze. This is what I'm seeing a lot of, is limited vantage points. And this is, again, very dualistic. So people coming out with their truth, but not having sat and listened to the story as it emerges, and being trapped in just one singular moment of, I know how this is. And because it's igniting something in them, they're like, yeah, I'm going to be a have a go hero, and I'm going to make my post about this. And actually, we don't see, when you look at the eclipse picture, we cannot see the full picture when we're in eclipse season. So save your breath so that you don't make a fool of yourself later, because Guru Chandal Yoga, the Jupiter Rahu conjunction, can make people look really stupid. And some of the truth is being eclipsed right now. So if you just go into a tantric dance with the unknown and the mystery, and understand you don't see it and you've got a limited gaze right now, it's a really good way from decolonizing, because at the moment we really do have a lot of decolonial work to do on the planet. And if we're always just saying, yeah, I've got the higher vantage point, but you haven't actually sat with it and understanding that this time is tricky about that, then you're going to have something more tangible to bring to the table. And something I notice a lot of is a lot of people who contradict themselves a lot on social media, because they'll get really hot-headed about something and it's their truth that moment. And then the next week they're barking up a different tree. And Mars can make us do that. Mars can make us really fiery on things. And people with a wonky Mars are always having a fight about something. So let your Mars be used for tantric energetics, utilize it to work with the Kundalini and to actually activate you into the heart, okay? And this will be good, because then you can access a higher wisdom that is less dualistic for this time. So let's look at what's happening in the Dreamspell calendar. And at this time, I just want to give gratitude to the rishis, the celestial bodies, to Jose Arguelles and his students for bringing through the Dreamspell calendar, to the day keepers of the Mayan lands, to Mark Elmy, my teacher in the Mayan system, and to Ganesha, the patron deity of Jyotish, science of light. Om Shrim Ganganapataye Namaha, Om Shrim Ganganapataye Namaha, Om Shrim Ganganapataye Namaha. So it was pretty amazing wiring in the universe that we basically we were at the last 2 days, so we were in crystalline energy and cosmic energy of the end of the world bridger wave spell, which is very much about death and rebirth, as the eclipse hit. And then on Blue Storm, this sense of regeneration and like a purge, a kind of violent rewiring is taking place. It's very yang, but it's great. It's like something that brings new growth. When you have a torrential downpour and then, you see everything's just shining and glistening in this beautiful green wealth later. So bang into eclipse season, we're starting into this reshuffle, okay? And this is also this reshuffle that we can see with Mercury retrograde. And so people are really getting to, this divine spark energy. And this is this whole energy that we see with the Guru Chandal Yoga that we're going to talk about later with Jupiter and Rahu also. So I'm certainly getting like the next bit of code for next chapters and, getting activated about things. I'm excited. I'm seeing what I have to teach on or what I've got to specialize in for the next few months. And it's igniting something in me. I'm getting passion and zing back after you know, a more retrospective winter, doing a lot of research and being behind the scenes. So a lot of you will feel really now that your astrological year is kicking off, right? And this sense of purpose may grow, okay? And but to mix, you have to have made space for that to come through. Now, then on the 5th of May, which is very much when Venus and Mars come together, and this is very much in Gemini, so it's around communications. We're having, and this goes on until basically the end of Mercury retrograde. We have the human wave spell, and human is really honoring what I said before about as above, so below, and the sacred role of astrology, that we are a fractal being that is, in sacred union with the cosmos, and everything actually is in sacred ratio. The way our bones and our body are made up, this is creating a transmitter receiver effect with the celestial bodies and all that is. And so the human is in a knowing of itself as a beacon of being, right? And it's also connected to wisdom because it's got an innate sense of connectedness with the cosmos, but it's also very much about free will. And when we talk about astrology and karma, we all have these big markers in our chart of karma, and some of it's fixed and we have to go through it, and some of it's a little bit more malleable, and remedies and things can help us to antidote the really deep effect of it. With the human, it's reminding us that we also have a sacred law in the universe, that is that we do have free will. And people would say that we have about 25% free will. And that doesn't sound very much. But as some astrologers have noted, if you look, for instance, in Vedic astrology, you've got 7 main celestial bodies. If you divide that by 100%, each of the celestial bodies is maybe affecting you and the cause and effect in your life 10%. Okay. And that's just a very general calculation. So actually that 25% that we have is going to maybe overcome something. So sometimes it's this striving to understand, yes, but I've got my sacred place in the ecosystem and I'm going to demonstrate my free will. And so Jose Arguelles was very intent on expressing that part of the reason for our incarnation is that this is what we would say is samsara, is these loops of cyclical existence that almost make us born onto a slave planet. And a lot of people get very dualistic about this and it becomes a real good and evil dialectic, but that we have no agency. And that part of the quest of the Dreamspell calendar and that its work with natural law and time is to help us to step into free will. And something I need to say about free will is not just whimsical self-cherishing. And by that, I mean when people just don't want to be generous and are a little bit greedy or selfish, when they say, yeah, it's not my flow, man, and they're not going to really spark into their higher being. Okay, so we have a lot of confusion around that in the new age, is people just becoming self-serving, right? The human is aware of its place in its ecosystem, that it has its individualism, but as such, it's able to, with its wisdom, be the authority in the right field. And the colonial system and the territorial system has pushed us out of that. And so we're often in the wrong ecosystem. And then things we don't have free will. We're not, when we're in true free will, we're in our perfect planetary service. We're in the right ecosystem, we thrive. The human is also about thriving. It's got abundance and alchemy within it. And so we're able to work with what we've got. It's Tantra, okay? We're able to weave with what we've got to come into a higher way of being. But if we're always in the wrong place and the wrong thing, then we're gonna never thrive. We're gonna be miserable and we're gonna feel like a slave. So truly, our liberation in this planet is about finding what we're good at and what we love, but devoting ourselves to the dharma of that to help all sentient beings. So what I really see here is that coming out of eclipse and this kind of purge, this death, is now we're really thinking, who am I in this? Who am I in this collective ecosystem? The human is a cosmic interlocutor, okay? So in any ecosystem, the consciousness of the human is also is something that's very important, and we've forgotten that, but tribal societies maintain that. We look at shamanism, or we look at the people who are rainmakers, or the people who speak to stones in Indigenous Australia. You know, this is something that we've forgotten, and actually we're interconnected with the ecosystem, and we've got a very strong consciousness that has a role and a purpose. So I really hope that what's happening out of this purge and this review that we're in and this cleaning that we've gone through is that we're starting to understand where our wisdom is, our personalized wisdom, what we can be a specialist in, and rather than to copy other people and to think, well, they look really glamorous, what an amazing influencer, I'm going to dress up like them and I need to be an influencer, you know? Or you know, we see a lot of copycats in a lot of the new age these days. So really ask human energy to help you find your place, because it's pretty on at the moment to do that, and the energy is going to be ripe for that in the coming months, but it's going to be bringing it through taking things away. Okay, sometimes it's taking stuff away, and if you understand that that's a necessary cosmic action, then it can actually be fun. Okay, so then we come into the Serpent wave spell, and that's from the 18th to the 30th of May. And Serpent brings up a lot about power relations, and Serpent energy is seen as one of the stronger energies of both the Mayan and the Dreamspell calendars, but not in a good way, okay? And Serpent energy is something that we either have a base carnal understanding of, which plays out as imbalances with sex, the ego, with the material world, loads of money and things in the wrong way, and a wrong relationship to death. When we're in right relation to the serpent, we're actually utilizing the Kundalini. We're in alignment with the fractal component of the serpent as a very key totem in the cosmovisions of all the planet. And when we do that, we're actually stepping into a higher truth, but we have to manage our relationship to shadow power relations. So I think that's going to be really up, because that's beautiful if we really take the challenge, because we have to have a reshuffle on the planet, and we have to do our work on that within, okay? We have to look at our relationship to power and our relationship to money, the material, privilege, things like this. And when we actually come out of the lower chakra separation in that, the competition, the sleaze, the greed, the drama, we actually are stepping into being a higher being, okay? And this is when the Siddhic awareness, higher awareness comes through. And when the Kundalini is activated in the right way and working through the right channels, we become a more spiritual person. So we have a lot lining up. After that, I feel like we're going through a little bit of a review. Like we have this kind of activation that's going to happen up till early June. And then the mirror wave spells kicking in from the 31st of May. And we have some interesting things at the beginning of June as well. And then reflect, you know, mirrors what's our sacred mirroring, what's coming up for us. And I feel like in the process that we're in with the eclipse, with this kind of rebirth, we're like a little child going to kindergarten, or kid learning to ride a bike with the stabilizers on. There still may be a delusion in what we think is the new prototype, okay? Because that's quite rife this year. And it's good, because mirror is going to come and ask us to really see what the sacred reflection is. So we might think, oh yeah, I've got this new look, I've got this new thing. And it's going to be important to see what the universe is bringing you, because you may attract people who, you know, you might be actually coming across as a bit of a diva, and you may attract lots of divas into your field. Or you may actually be thinking that you're portraying something on social media that's really wise, but it's actually sexual shadow and a daddy wound, stuff like that. So it's going to be a really interesting time after we are integrating eclipse and Mercury retrograde to see, okay, who's showing up, what's happening here. So I think that's a really good time for some cosmic homework, okay? So that you can refine because delusion is never far away this year, and it's a good thing that the universe is giving us this appraisal time if we so choose to take it. Okay, on to the traditional Mayan calendar, the Chokyu, the sacred calendar, and we are currently well, when we come into May, we're in an Ahpu, the sun Trisena. So again, you know, sun is exalted in Aries, and we've got a lot of Aries energy. And we currently have sun exalted in Aries as well. So we have this it's a really good time in a way to shine again, especially for those in the global north who felt I know a lot of people are feeling very contracted, and there's been a lot of murky energy. And I think it's good to give everybody a bit of Atman, collective soul energy to shine with. Of course, Akpu, the sun, you know, some people are very dynamic and light up a room. But what I've often seen as the shadow of sun people is also they're so busy shining that they don't give other people space. And, you know, the thing about sun is you see it kind of half the day. At night you don't see it, but some people sometimes have a limiting wiring that it kind of sometimes is all about them, and it's a bit of blindness. So we need to look at our blindness of how much are we making things all about us as we come into our new journey. And this is this whole warning about don't just proclaim yourself this new Messiah or whatever, go into the chosen one delusion with your new ideas. Okay, so maybe utilize the shining to shine in a good way. Sun, you know, sun is also Leo energy, and Leos can be tremendously generous. They're good project managers, also great with children. How can you step into altruism and utilize sun energy? Sun is also great. It's quite a community player. It's not an introvert, okay? So how can you utilize sun's energy to give you a little bit of mojo back that you may have lost over the winter months if you're in the global north? But how do you also manage your ego? Okay, because it's going to get cut down otherwise, right? And this is the whole tendency. We've got to dance with these energies lightly. And I'm warning you so that you don't make a fool of yourself. Okay. So, but you know, that I've just mentioned here as well, it's divine fire energy. So I do think so many people need a spark. Certainly, you know, there's been a lot of energy over the last few months. It's been great. I personally had a wonderful time in the last few months, but almost sometimes wondering if there's something wrong with me. I don't have that deeper Martian energy. I've been clocking in my work and loving it, but it's like a little bit slow. And now I'm really feeling something rising. Yeah. So I think it's a beautiful time for us to get a divine spark again to remind us, you know, of who we want to step into. From the 11th of May to the 23rd, we're coming into Ah energy. Now, this is a godsend. Ah, and this is Ah here in the middle. Ah is also seen as the reed. It's like an upstanding piece of grass. It's part of its ecosystem. It's not trying to be special in any way, but it does its function really well. And the Ah is seen like the mayor of a community. Ah has worked with power. And in a way, this is a good stabilizing force for the serpent energy that's also happening in the middle of that time. Is responsible use of power. It understands how things work. It's that sort of person that's always lives in the same place in the town. Everybody comes to see them, to ask them, look, I need a job reference. Who do I go to? Or, you know, they know how things work. So they're responsible. Okay, and people trust them, and they're stable. The Ah symbol is made up of mostly straight lines, and none of the others are in the same way. And it's a really balanced way of working with energy. Okay, so that's a good thing to stabilize the serpent energy that's going to kick in. And this is also in many ways with the Gemini energy and the Mercury retrograde. It's, as I said, Ah is able to work with power and information responsibly. So how have we made a synthesis? It's almost like what we do in permaculture. We map and observe a situation first. We're getting a deeper vantage point of some things of how they work. But if we're too busy externalizing that, we're not going to really understand how it works, and we won't deploy Ah energy. Ah has really grounded it in its being, and then is able to be a responsible point of information. And this is something certainly Swati Singh, who does amazing, she's a Vedic life coach channel, and she's personally my favorite astrologer for giving me readings. Yeah, she's just also talking out and speaking out about just, you know, that we need to use information wisely and beware of fake news and very dualistic opinions. And if we use the energy, it's actually creating a code and a template that you can utilize in this whole time of Guru Chandal Yoga, which is going to be on until November, really. It's going to peak on the 1st and 2nd of June, which is something I'll be talking about. And if you can really sit with energy, it's something you can then cut and paste into your being as a code that will then help you to weather Guru Chandal Yoga to actually become a responsible spiritual citizen rather than a dualistic scandal monger, okay? And dualistic scandal is sacral chakra imbalances, okay? So looking at that should help. So really ask for to help you and really sit with energy and learn more about it. Now, we're doing a dance with what's come before in the Dreamspell calendar. So on the 24th of May, we go into death again. We go into the equivalent of World Bridger. And this day and this 13-day cycle is the beginning of transformation. So you see, this is it. We're not getting a full starter, okay? This is aligned with the mirror way of spell in the Dreamspell calendar. So there's another review. There's like what we think is the start, but it's a false start, okay? So that's why it's better to meditate and map, do the work behind the scenes. Don't launch any new ideas too crazily, because you may have ego slaps, okay? Ego slaps are something that may or may not get seen depending on how open you are to work with your karma around that. And so it's you could be like, hi, I'm going to show off loads, and then it's like you get stuck again because it's not ready. There's another layer of this to go. So I think this is I really see mirror and kamek coming as really beautiful mechanisms to help those who are pure of heart and who can exercise humility to create something sustainable rather than to go on the bandwagon that we're going to see. You're going to see a lot of people who don't know any of this, who are not doing their work on their lower chakras. You're going to see a lot of stuff, and it will also help you not to be feeling feelings of shame and inconsequentiality because everybody else looks more sparkly than you do, which is a really big wound that people have. So actually just watching people play out their stuff and going, yep, okay, is this bringing up something for me? Okay, how do I cultivate from within? And how do I find my right soul group? And how do I actually be that person and understand the human energy to start to find my place in the community rather than thinking we've got to perform it either, okay? So back to the Vedic astrology. So I'm going to go more deep into some of these things. And as you know, I've spoken quite a lot about Guru Chandal Yoga since about December, but here we have it here. And this is this Jupiter-Rahu conjunction. So this is Jupiter and Rahu. Rahu is insatiable, deceptive, exotic, foreign, addictive, and leads us through delusion, through dragging us into funny little narratives for karmic reasons, but also to see the shadow, okay? And we all have a Rahu, so there's no judgment in anybody here. It's a funny little dance. And I think, you know, we're always bouncing off each other's Rahus when somebody makes a really grandiose claim or decides, you know, they're the new messiah of something and this and that. But, you know, there's a real propensity for people's Rahu to go crazy this year because we've got Jupiter sitting with it. And Jupiter's the guru, the benefic, and a really big expander into kind of deeper, wider prosperity. Rahu is very materialistic. So it's a time where people can make money, but it's also a time where people can go into the Rahu path, think it's spiritual, and do really silly things because they become really excessive and greedy. And where your Rahu and Jupiter are placed, and I'm happy to do people readings on this, this is gonna, for some people, Jupiter's gonna kick off more and some Rahu's gonna kick off more, but we all still have to be careful of, are we gonna take the spiritual pill or are we gonna take the ego pill, right? And this is where people are already playing this out. So people are saying really silly stuff on the internet. It's going to make them look stupid. So the Rahu's making them think they're wise because they're not doing their homework. And then they're going to come out and say things because they want to have the power of, I know what's right. I'm an influencer. I know these things. So we're going to get a lot of fake newsy stuff. Okay. And of course, you know, part of the challenge is, are we going to spend all day on Facebook commenting on things or tweeting things, or are we just going to do our work? So Astrology Loka, Gina Loka, she's a great Vedic astrologer as well. She says that part of the divine spark that we're getting in these times, which has really started. So Guru Chandal Yoga has just begun, and it began on the 22nd of April. It's going to finish fully on the 28th of November, and then Rahu is going into Pisces, and that's going to be a big thing. So we have Mercury combust. So Mercury and Sun are very, very close together and conjunct at one point, and that's going to really activate some of our energy on the 1st and 2nd of May. So whatever you've kind of gestating at the moment, you'll probably have felt this surge of new energy from the 22nd. It seemed that the 1st and 2nd of May, which in many countries is Beltane, it's a huge celebration of energy and activation for the year, that is going to give a higher knowing of a sort that we can all harness. But again, you don't need to go live on it immediately. You get your download. And then basically the Guru Chandal Yoga is peaking on the 2nd of June. So the days before and after the 2nd of June are going to be really big. And this is all in Ashwini. So this is all about, it's very speedy. It can be a bit erratic, but it's healing. It's healing. It can be this kind of new quantum ways of working or new novel technologies that help people, you know, like biomagnetism, bioresonance, these magical machines that can balance, you know, people in amazing ways. And it can be extraterrestrial technologies, which, and I mean that by saying it can be coming from celestial bodies or star knowledge. People may be downloading a lot in those times, but also it's this problem that if Rahu takes over, people are going to show off too much and they're actually not going to harness the energy. You see, this energy can just speed away. And if we're working tantrically, if we're working in the right way, we can actually really cultivate sexual energy and multidimensional energy to actually bring higher realizations through. But it's a little bit like, are we going to prematurely ejaculate or not? Okay, that's really how it looks. It's you're going to hold this and, you know, and take it out of the ego in this moment of self-gratification, or are you going to really bring it into a higher channel to bring a higher dharma, higher planetary service, and something that will actually last you longer, rather than, you know, one moment that's actually going to create a hangover. And that's very much the effect. Maybe we should be calling this the time of premature ejaculation. So we need to be really careful about those dates, but also if you know that these sparks are coming, you can really utilize your energy to be an observer of what's coming through, and to dance with it, okay, in the true way. So we still got the Gadanta energy that I spoke of the last time, this karmic knot that sits when we move from a water sign into a fire sign. So we've had Jupiter moving from Pisces into Aries, which makes a kind of steam energy and can be a little bit uncomfortable for Jupiter, and can mean that it's quite a karmic situation. So people may be playing through karmas, there can be discomfort, but ultimately, when that discomfort has ceased on the 5th of May, we're going to be finding that the peak of it finishes then. We're going to find that it will expand us in some way. But yeah, it's quite a karmic time still. But at least as the month progresses, the insights, the stabilizing is going to take place, which is just amazing. So in terms of big Aries energy, and Aries, of course, is the baby of the zodiac. It's the beginner of the zodiac. It's a pioneer. It's a very fiery energy. It sometimes has a naivety, but it also has this power to spark new ideas and to be a pioneer of things, and to give the, you know, it's this ignition of a light that's going to yield something if we harness that pilot light into making it a bigger fire. So actually, until the 15th, we've got Mercury, which is retrograding, Rahu, Jupiter, and Sun all together. So this is a huge amount of activation energy, and as well, how we're working with information, communication, and intelligence. So, or no, I should actually say intellect, really. And that's a lot of energy in Aries, okay? So that's stellium of sorts. And, you know, there are different things happening with these planets rubbing each other up. So this is it can be agitated, it's making something happen. It's this storm energy that's catalyzing something, it's activating, it's rubbing. But yeah, we won't fully be able to take that anywhere until Mercury goes direct. So these new bursts of energy that are happening, at least now in May, we're going to be finding our feet with them, okay? It's destabilizing in April, but, you know, and we still have to come through the eclipse, but if we really understand how to cultivate our communications and not jump the gun with stuff, it's actually going to help us to be able to create new templates for new ways of being. So to sum up, as we said last time, the eclipse energies will create some endings, and they'll also line up some new beginnings. I hope you see just how great this potentiality for new beginnings is, because it's all happening in Aries. This is phenomenal, okay? And to see that this is dancing with storm energy, which ignites things, with human energy, which is showing us our uniqueness, but in an interconnected field. We've got this sense of responsibility and life force all around it as well. It's very amazing energy to step forth, okay? But do continue to be careful with your words. You know, this has still got the potentiality to provoke misunderstandings. Please do meditation. Please understand that studying things like internal family systems and parts, language, or nonviolent communication, so that you're not too Martian and violent in your speech, is going to be really important, so that you do not lose advocates along the way. You know, you have this time of starting to create and call forth allies. But yeah, the cosmic trick here is that if you are not working on your spiritual energy, you won't be able to bring the right allies in, okay? Because you're going to be so much in the ego that you won't be able to see to step into the oneness, okay? So there's a cosmic initiation here, and I feel like some people will take the initiations this year and become very great spiritual adepts through this year. This is the benefit of Guru Chandal Yoga. And there's others who will crash and burn, but that's probably necessary. We see so much super wonkiness in things like the New Age that has to be addressed. And it's almost like the stakes are high. And those who are going to really go into a greedy way of being are probably going to spend some time, especially from November when the economics are looking really ropey. It's going to be hard for them to sustain audiences. You know, you want to be in service to your audience. Think of a good king, a good leader. They are in service to their subjects, you know, and there's a lot of confusion where people are trying to play out kings and queens just because they get nicer clothes and they can be an influencer or a digital nomad and always under a palm tree. And actually, if we can keep real with the thing that the planetary upgrade as a collective job, and really keep devoting ourselves to, so how does this fit into the bigger picture? Not how can I monetize this? How can I make myself big? Think about who am I bringing in my spaceship with me? That's not my spaceship, the spaceship. Who's in my ecosystem? This will help you, okay? Always keeping sight of the fact that just because you might be getting downloads, everybody else is too. So you're not any more special. We're in a collective evolution. So keeping it real, keeping observant is going to be really good for cultivating humility, which is ultimately going to help you become a better person. And it's actually going to make you more prosperous in the long run on many levels. So these new insights are likely to spring forth early May with this inner fire, divine spark, passionate activation of new information of Venus and Mars together. Will you be responsible, or will you be over-sensual, deceptive, or manipulative? This is your choice. So something more tangible is really being birthed and alchemized under this Aries Mercury retrograde energy. And life force energy is going to arise from this, but be careful of Rahu's deception with this and acts of stupidity that could set you back in the long run. You know, this is a stupid yoga as well. The end of May sees more transitional energies and cosmic mirroring. And will this help you to step into a journey of humility and understanding who you're to dance with and what you're to dance with? This is a really great cosmic mechanism to help us spot delusion and to clear afflictions, okay? And are you going to do that? Okay. And finally, just because the serpent energy feels so strong in this particular time, we are running our Serpents of Transformation immersion, which is a very deep dive into working with the chakras, and especially the lower chakras, which are where our deception, our egoic nature, our sexual dysfunction, and all of these things lie. And it's a real foundation for stepping into higher tantric reality. It's a deep dive for 54 days or more if you've done it before. And we've got lots of goodies, and we have a lot of trauma-informed support. We have extra healing sessions, and basically it's utilizing a very ancient and secret lineage of pranayama, which is breath work, aligned with Kundalini yoga and teachings on chakra wisdom, DNA wisdom, and multidimensional esoteric knowledge. So if you would like to know more, please do get in touch with our team. And I'm doing a satsang about 1 week before it starts, but it starts on the 18th of May with the Serpent Wave spell. The journey actually takes us into the center of the planetary Kundalini to do this work. And we've been running this course for 3 years now, and people have absolutely profound transformations. You can see some of the testimonials on our website. So we really would love to invite you onto that, because it's a real-time immersion to work through these things, and to also sometimes these things that seem embarrassing or shameful, we see, oh my goodness, lots of us have this. We're working through it. And it's when we do these things and we show up in the real time together, especially with numerology and astrology behind us, miracles occur, not just for ourselves, but for others. So if you really want to be able to make the most of Guru Chandal Yoga, because Rahu is ultimately the head of the serpent, this can be a really good way to stabilize your energy field, to help you get the most out of it. Because if you are working from the imbalances of your lower chakras throughout Guru Chandal Yoga, it's just going to mean that you're likely to attract more shadow outcomes. And if you've actually deconstructed a lot of that through working through it in this immersion, it's going to help you to be more a heart-based, dharma-based person, which is ultimately going to make less suffering. It's going to lead you into awakening higher, and it's going to lead you to the new earth, ultimately, we hope. So thank you all for listening. It's been an honor and pleasure to give this little talk. And yeah, please subscribe to get more offerings like this. I'm really going to be starting to bring my transmissions into the 21st century, I hope. I'm just playing around with a few different things. It'll bear with me. It may take a couple of years, but I'm going to try to become more professional. I want to give gratitude to the traditional owners, ancestors, and the ancients of the lands we're in, to all our relations, to the rishis, the day keepers of the Mayan lands, to Mark Elmy, to Jose Arguelles, and the Dreamspell astrologers, and celestial bodies if I didn't mention them, and to Ganesha, patron deity of Jyotish, the science of light. Om Shrim Ganganapataye Namah.